Today, seemingly out of nowhere, Paul McCartney, one of the last remaining music giants, has finally granted his fans' decades-long wish. Named by him, these five rock stars broke his heart, molded his soul, and impacted his music. Also, this isn't a random compilation. I've had a profound epiphany. His favorites aren't the only ones. These ladies competed head-to-head with the greats, and a few of them even stole the show. Some of them met Clapton. Lennon admired a few of them, and each one of them left an indelible mark on Paul. He begins with a woman whose ethereal figure, smoke-filled voice, and shawls and secrets shrouded tale swept the globe like a spell. The arrival of Stevie Nicks was like a chiffon and thunder vision for Paul. Her voice was captivating, but Paul was utterly enchanted by her mere presence. She was more than simply a performer. A scene unfolded around her. Backstage at award shows and secret champagne parties, they shared stages in the 17th. Her courage was more admirable than her songwriting, in his opinion. Her guiding hand through the cocaine, jealousy, and grief that befell Fleetwood Mac, without sacrificing who she is. Once, Eric Clapton chased after Stevie, seeking to unravel her enigma. Yet Paul did little more than stare in wonder. Her vulnerability, concealed beneath her witchy radiance, was what hit him the most. It was more than just a hit. Landslide and Dreams were an exorcism. In Paul's romantic view, she was a wounded poet trying to make it in a cruel world, rather than a wild woman. If Stevie represented a utopia, then Chrissie Hynde represented a harsh awakening. The moment Paul heard Chrissie's voice for the first time stayed with him forever. Heartfelt punk who is raw and rebellious. She didn't grovel for acceptance in a man's world since she was the Pretenders' frontwoman. In a huff, she grabbed it. Their common ground in traditional songwriting, mutual aversion to pretense, and mutual appreciation for classic rock and roll brought them together. Both as a musician and a powerful figure, Paul held her in high esteem. No one could stand Chrissie because of her unflinching honesty and refusal to back down. Similar entanglements befell her as well. From a distance, Eric Clapton admired her and even attempted to entice her to work with him. That was never the case. Chrissie wasn't one to fool around. Nobody had to tell her she was right. No one's, not Clapton, not Paul, nobody's. For that very reason, Paul held her in high honor. Joni Mitchell was like the scenery that Chrissie's storm brought to light. Huge, dazzling, and etched with brilliance. I bet you've heard people trembling with awe whenever they say that name. Joni Mitchell was an emotional architect. She was more than just a singer and songwriter. You're relying on your identity and your essence. This is how the poets I read in school and elsewhere shaped my writing. A composer's composer, Paul dubbed her. Yet even that appeared insignificant. It was more than just songwriting. From her anguish, she was constructing universes, transforming her grief into architecture. They met in Laurel Canyon during the 16th and 17th centuries, amid the golden twilight of life, when inspiration and ego clashed in every cottage. She enchanted musicians such as Young, Clapton, and Nash. However, Paul observed in silent wonder. Her profundity and accuracy both captivated him. Her expressions were sculpture-like. Each syllable sculpted, each pause purposeful. She brought music to the dead. Paul found Joni's bravery to be the most fascinating thing. Her songs did more than just show her soul. They made it plain. Surrounded by pretentiousness and masks, her unflinching honesty was both striking and frightening. Her voice possessed the deftness to break glass or to gently pour rain. On the other hand, there was nighttime. Joni is wary and hurt after her traumatic breakup with Graham Nash. Her temper flared, and she became visibly enraged against the duplicity in the industry. Even though she was called challenging by others, Paul never saw haughtiness in her. He beheld armor befitting a guy who had been beaten so badly. With one foot in adoration and the other in competitiveness, she and Clapton shared an electric musical tension. But Paul was the one who subtly grasped the depth of her grief. Being both idolized in public and misunderstood in private was nothing new to him. A fractured, brilliant mirror-reflecting and unruly talent was what he saw in Joni. However, admiration was not the source of all influences. Like Janis Joplin, whose voice plagued Paul, some were born out of sadness. The actual chemistry between her and the Beatles happened offstage, not during their performances. Much more than that, Janis Joplin was a performer. She was an uncontrollable fire. Paul likened meeting her as gazing into a supernova in the midst of its outburst. Her laughter masked profound anguish. She exuded an aura of sharpness and ache. At that very second, he witnessed an untamed spirit pleading for nothing more than acknowledgement, a creature at once wild and vulnerable. Her voice was a gaping hole, an unforgettable one for Paul. Insiders and roadies recounted in hushed tones of a San Francisco night when Paul and Janis went missing from a backstage party and had an hour-long conversation. She confided in him about her oppression, feeling confined by her public persona and unfairly criticized for her untamed nature. Rather than a show, she aspired to be recognized for her genuine artistic abilities. What she said stuck with Paul because he paid attention. Accusations of inebriated embracing circulated. Met in hotel bars and via late-night phone calls, exchanged cigarettes on fire escapes, and spent long, hazy nights traveling. She was raw and painful, and Clapton loved that. He admitted once that she sang as if her life were in the balance. It was Paul's opinion as well. He remarked that it seemed as though each song was her final confession. He was grieved by her passing. It went beyond the death of a friend. It was the squandering of opportunities, of unspoken melodies and unrealized poetic expression. Even to this day, he still won't let himself listen to those Janis songs in private. They are overly acute and genuine. Memories are sliced by them. In Janis, Paul saw more than just a colleague. He witnessed the price of being overly forthright in a society that celebrates men's breaking and condemns women for bleeding. Last but not least, there was Linda Ronstadt, the one who made everyone feel at home. The one whose words lingered in his mind even after the cheers died down. This was the most intimate name on the list. A voice isn't all that Linda Ronstadt was. She was a dichotomy of elegance and grit. Paul could never get enough of her, velvet wrapped in flames. His fascination with her creativity and the industry's inability to hold her in check led him to observe her from a distance during award events and studio hallways for years. They became closer in the late 17s when they were both in Los Angeles, broken by fame, yet determined to find truth via music. Between takes and glances in those dimly lit studios, an unspoken spark ignited. After their recording sessions ended, they stayed for a bit too long, joked, and battled about lyrics. In every interview where her name came up, Paul remained silent, which said volumes about their relationship. Her magnetic presence also captivated Clapton. They collaborated for a short time, but Linda had an innate ability to recognize boundaries. She kept her distance from the male-dominated world and refused to get sucked in by their inflated egos. Her unflinching determination to not play the muse amplified her eerie presence. Paul remarked that she has the ability to sing any song and make it sound like a broken heart. Some of his tracks are still hotly debated among music reviewers, songs drowned in sorrow that go untitled. However, people in the know that a few of those were actually about her. Linda stayed just out of grasp, just like many of rock's most enigmatic women. The reason she didn't run is that she did nothing as the world spun around her. Accordingly, why were these 5 chosen specifically? Why now? Perhaps McCartney is prepared to reveal his true feelings for the women who have had a profound impact on his music. In his own creative mythology, not merely as associates or sources of inspiration, but as specters to be avoided. These were not passing remarks. Every name is tied to a tale, a wound, or a song that was almost a hit but never quite got there. Without approval, but with dogged determination, each woman carved out a niche for herself in a patriarchal society. They battled in addition to singing, against naysayers, preconceptions, and the industry's machinery that pushed them to play it safe and be quiet and attractive. Everyone could see Paul. No, they were far from ideal. They had great influence. Mild storms occurred on occasion. Category 5 storms were among the others. No matter how little they were, they all made an impression on history and hurt the feelings of the men who had disregarded them. You can still hear McCartney's musical influences whenever he discusses music. With Chrissy's punch, Stevie's dreaminess reverberates. In his quiet and chords reside the complexity of Joni, the pain of Janice, and the velvet fire of Linda. Not one of them slipped Paul McCartney's mind.